Hello and welcome to Hey Mando podcast on the Merc with Movie Blog podcast feed, where we talk about the Mandalorian. Season 2, we're in the middle of it. We're halfway through. I am one of your hosts, Shawn, and I am joined as always by my fellow hosts. First of all, Wade. Wade, how's it going? You were kind of absent last week.
Boba Fett and Baby Yoda, they keep getting better and better each episode, dude. This is the buddy movie that I always wanted right here. Make these two cops and put them in a fucking movie.
I'd watch it.
Hell yeah.
And also Dean. Hi, Dean.
Hi. If Baby Yoda couldn't be any more dangerous, let's give him a badge and a gun.
Yeah.
I don't think he needs it.
No. He does need to use the Force a little bit more, I think. It's time to... Even if it's just something, I mean, the last time we saw it was pulling those eggs toward himself in the jar. But I mean, even just something like that small again. We need something else.
I agree.
Kind of did a little bit.
Yes, and I'm going to say this. Usually the way this show works is we go non-spoiler in the first part. We do an ad break and we go into spoilers after that. It's getting so hard to do that. There is so much going on in these episodes, and I think there are things that I would consider spoilers that other people wouldn't. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to say this. All spoilers this episode. We're not going to get into the big thing. People that have watched the show, there's a big thing. You know this.
I was right.
That'll be...
I didn't even realize it was a big thing until I started coming on here.
Oh, I was right, but we'll get into it, though. We'll get
after the break. After the break, we're going to get into that stuff. For now, there's plenty of other stuff to talk about. But I want to start the episode off. First of all, the episode was titled The Siege, which...
I don't know if that fit very well.
Kind of a siege.
The last episode was more of a siege than this one.
Yeah, definitely. Directed by Carl Weathers. Killed it, I thought. I thought he did an amazing job. It was a very well-directed episode. Written, as almost always, by Jon Favreau. But what I want to start the episode off by saying is we're completely in the dark now. I mean, not completely. We know some stuff. We know Ahsoka's going to show up at some point. But we've seen everything from the trailers.
True. I didn't watch the trailer, so is this everything?
Everything has been shown in episodes 1 through 4 from the trailers. So 4 through 8, we have not seen a single bit of footage from 4 through 8.
Makes sense because I'm not going to say what, because we'll get into it later. But the end of this episode kind of implies that from here on out, we're in the thick of it. We're kind of at the point of no return, really.
Yeah, this episode, I went into this episode thinking it was going to be a kind of what we've been doing, which is like, we go to a planet, we have a little adventure. It's pretty unrelated to the plot as large, but we have some fun, and then we go off and maybe we advance a little bit of the plot. But there was a lot of stuff in this episode that, again, after the break. But there are some things that I wanted to talk about because I had more notes on this episode than I have on any other episode in the entire show so far. I really loved the episode. It's
going to be a plot-heavy episode.
How did you know?
Because the recap was like 10 minutes long at the beginning, and it showed everything from every other episode.
Yeah, I've started skipping the recap because I think it kind of spoils the episode a little bit. Like in this one, the Mithril is in the recap, which tells you that he's going to be back in the episode. And at least that's kind of how I see it. So I've started skipping the recap, but it was a lot. I do want to start off with general ideas on the episode, which I really enjoyed it. I don't know if I enjoyed it more than last week. I really loved this episode. Dean, what did you think of it?
I'm afraid we're going to have to live comfortably on the opposite side of the spectrum of this one. This was, to me, not only the worst episode this series, but the worst episode, I think, overall. Including all of the episodes from last season. I think this is the bottom of the barrel. I think you could tell this one was directed by a first-time director. I just think there was nothing interesting or visually appealing. It kind of just felt flat to me.
Wade is like about to kick you from the show.
I thought the performances were kind of flat for the most part.
I got something to say about that.
Yeah. That's overall. That's where I'm at. So, Jay.
I will agree with you really quick that it definitely didn't have the flair of an established director. There was nothing that really was like, this is Carl Weathers, which I don't think he's a director.
I don't think he has, no. And you got to wonder what the logic here, having him direct this episode, is, because if he's never directed anything, okay, you assume he's a big star. He's in the show, obviously. He presumably wants to get into directing, and with a director of the week kind of vibe, this was the perfect place for him to come on, I guess. Yeah. But I don't know. I just don't think it was a good fit. I think somebody could have done something a bit more to spruce up, because it's a very by the numbers, not only by this show's standards, but just in general. I think it's very by the numbers, like action adventure episode. And I think maybe having somebody with a bit more of a flair or a bit more of a voice would have kind of made this one stand out a bit more for me. But that's just me.
I think I do kind of agree with that. I do think that, like, when you compare first time director outings in this show so far, I think Bryce Dallas Howard had a better outing in her first episode. I know Wade will disagree with that because he didn't like that episode, but I really did enjoy the first episode 4 last season. I thought that was a better outing for a first time director than this was. But as I think the episode for me worked. There was a lot of plot. There was the return of old characters that I realized I really enjoyed. We got a lot of time away from the Mandalorian, to the point where I spent the entire last half of the episode. I thought they might die. I had no idea if they were going to live or not.
I thought we were really going to take a turn for the worse for the characters in the latter part of this episode, and that's not necessarily. It isn't what we got. But yeah, I don't want to go too far. Again, it's referring to the end stuff. I don't want to get into that. It's hard.
Wade, you okay, buddy?
Yeah, I'm good. I've been pre-writing the conversation that Dean and I are going to have after this show. I fire him from Essie and Afterlife. He can stay on this one, but I can't do shows with him.
He can keep me.
Hey man, that's fair, dude. To each their own. I get it. I mean, like, the perfect example, Shawn and I vastly disagree on The Last Jedi. I mean, he and I could probably scream at each other for 4 or 5 hours over that. But it's just, dude, to each their own. I just, for me, man, it was awesome. I got for me as a child growing up, one of my favorite things were the speeder bikes in Return of the Jedi.
Yes,
so
yes.
Like, I was like, it was like I was a child again watching that. Cara Dune was freaking awesome in this episode, dude. I mean, really good. I had no issues with the direction of it that Carl Weathers did. I mean, I had forgotten that he was even the director of it, to be honest. But I had no issues with that whatsoever. I'm just totally stoked more than anything that I was right, and I've been right now. And but we'll get into that later after the break.
We're all dancing around it already.
I mean, we can talk about what it is. I just don't want to spend, because once you talk about that, it's hard to get into the lesser
me,
stuff.
Man. I'll go off on that. So
yeah. So I mean, like, we're not trying to hide what happened, but I know that once we get into that, we're going to get into that. And there's some other stuff I want to hit on first. The first thing, the opening. I loved the opening. I love Baby Yoda with I use the red wire. Show me the red wire. Like, I love no, don't let them get near to each other. I loved that. I thought it was adorable. Although Baby Yoda is so easy to win with me. Every time that little bastard's on screen, I'm like, I love you. I love you so much.
Here's why I've got an issue with that, is because the show seems to pick and choose when it's convenient how smart they want Baby Yoda to be. Now, in the last episode, he clearly says, don't eat the eggs, and the baby eats the eggs. He's a baby. Fine, we discover that. So then, knowing that, are you really going to try and get him to repair your ship? Really?
I think there's a big difference there.
And I also think
Mando, that's a complicated set of tasks as opposed to don't eat the egg or do eat the egg, as opposed to mix and match the cables. And I just think that's a far more complex task. And if you can't have the one command and not eat the eggs, don't give the guy a blueprint and a schematic and a wrench and send him in there.
I'll bring up two things on that. One is this is not my thought, so I'm not even going to try to take credit for it. But I believe it was Christian Harloff this morning on he and Kalinowski's spoiler review concerning that. Had brought up that he felt that it's like the Mandalorian. He ain't got nobody to talk to, man. He's just lonely. So like he's just trying anything. He's trying to entertain himself. He's just trying anything, dude. And then that being said, I also it kind of reminds me of like you're sitting there with your dog and your dog's ball is right next to the rope.
Yeah,
and you're like, bring me your ball, and it keeps going for the rope. You're like, no, the ball. Get the ball, because that damn thing don't really understand what you're talking about. But your dog
still knows not to eat your babies.
Well, that's instinct though too. But I mean.
It worked for me for two reasons. First of all, at the end of the bit, Mando's like, what the fuck am I doing? Like, that was never going to work, right? The second reason it worked for me is because it didn't work.
Right.
If Baby Yoda had repaired it, I would have been like, bullshit. No way. The fact that he's not able to do it in the end. He's just like, what the fuck? I'm going to... Like, the fact that he does that, and the fact that after he does that, Mando is like, what the fuck was I thinking? Like, of course that's not going to work. Is why it worked for me.
He knows that he's on a really important mission, and he knows that his ship is so messed up from the last episode. So it's just the logic of, I'm going to risk having this whole situation get even worse, because, the kid could have blown the whole ship up. They're in space when he's doing this.
Yeah.
It just seemed risky to me.
I also did like how the very last thing we saw at the end of last episode was when he went off to light speed, a little piece of the ship fell off. Yeah. And then the very first thing we see is he's having troubles with the ship. Yeah. So, I mean, that was a nice little, like, it lined up, That was cool.
This season has lined up so well, going from episode to episode.
Yeah.
Beautifully.
Do you remember last week I said about how he gave them all of his credits, and all they could do was refuel his ship. He asked them to fix it as best as they could, and they were like, no, we couldn't really do anything. And then that completely ties into this episode, because if they would have fixed his ship, this episode wouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
But then, Navarro, is that really the only place he could have gone to get his ship fixed?
I think it's the only place he trusted.
But they didn't even fix his ship, because when they get to the planet, they go off, and then he comes back in the ship. We don't even know how the ship gets fixed. They're not even there doing it, so it's not even them.
Karga, it happened really fast.
Very contrived, I thought, that whole through line with the ship.
Yeah, I definitely can see that. I think it's more a television thing than it is, like, in television that happens a lot. Yeah, I mean, Greef Karga had his guys fix it, which, as we found out, might not have been the best idea, because one of them was working for the Empire.
Yep.
It's what I mean, going back to that planet, of all places, Mando's got to have friends in other places.
But I think he trusts Greef Karga and Cara Dune more than... Because Greef Karga goes, let me see the little guy, and he picks up Baby Yoda and carries him away, and Mando doesn't pull a gun on him. Like, I think that's a really good indication of how much he trusts those people.
He even trusted them enough that when they said, leave the child here in this school with this room full of people you've never met while we go off on a mission. Still, like, that's what shocked me. I was like, no way he's doing that, dude.
I had such anxiety about the school.
Yeah.
My first thought was, oh, wow, we've not really seen a school in Star Wars. Then I thought, actually, we have. And what happened the last time we saw a room full of kids in a Star Wars thing?
Yep. Poor kid.
Then...
I I'm just imagining fucking Moff Gideon walking into the school with the dark saber.
When we get to later on, and they say, and then he puts it together that Moff Gideon's still alive, and he's like, "Oh shit, I've got to run back to the school." I'm thinking, "Oh man, he's gonna get back to the school, and it's gonna be like Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru, and it's just all burnt out."
And that would have been good.
And everyone's dead. Baby Yoda's gone. Which is why it kind of threw me for a loop when, Razor Crest just come and saved the day and it was all fixed. And that whole bundle of that kind of just didn't. That's why that kind of rubbed me the wrong way. But again, we're skipping ahead.
Yeah, but I do think that once we can kind of talk about this, once we get to the end, we find out that I know, Wade. I'm waiting to bring them up for a second because I have a thing to bring up with them. I think it kind of gets into the like at the end of Empire. When I think it's at the end of Empire when the Millennium Falcon gets away. Oh no, A New Hope. The reason they got away is because they had they put a tracking device on the Millennium Falcon. Like this they didn't really want to get Baby Yoda in Navarro. I think they realized this is not the place to get Baby Yoda here. Like this is a place where he has the locals on his side. So instead of trying to grab him here, they put the tracking device on the ship so that they can find him later, which is kind of similar to what they do at the end of A New Hope. The reason the Millennium Falcon is able to get away is because they use the tracking device to lead them to the Rebel base.
Speaking about the locals on the planet, everyone seems to be doing fantastic.
Yeah, it looks great.
Last time, even Carl Weathers and Cara Dune, they've all got new costumes. They all look.
Carl Weathers has got like a gray beard now.
It's like, how long has it been?
It feels like it's been a while.
They've aged like 3 ages. If this was like Age of Empires, they've leveled up like 4 times or something. I'm glad for them. I'm not holding it against them. I just wasn't sure about the time thing. And you're right. The grey in his beard. They were all wearing new. I think they look like new costumes, or they're just really.
He is. He's wearing more of like an official's costume. I think she's wearing the same thing.
Really? Because I thought her armor looked just as blue as what's his name? It looked really bright, like she'd been promoted or something. Maybe I don't know if she's like an official security.
Since the there no more.
I
do like the view of like once the Empire is gone, how much nicer the place is.
Yeah. I guess that's it. Obviously, that's what they're trying to emphasize, and they really went all in on that. And it wasn't just the costumes; it's when they kind of went outside. It's like everything was just bright, and like the marketplace was all vibrant, and it was really good stuff.
My question: where the fuck is the armorer?
Yeah, did she make it out alive?
The last time we saw her, she beat the shit out of those stormtroopers.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
But that was my big question watching the episode when they never showed up. But I do want to bring up, because I do have this picture of the school. And the reason I wanted to bring this up is because IG-11, there's a statue of him in the background, and that made me so happy. It made me so happy that they put up a statue to IG-11 in the background. That
was pretty cool.
Yeah, this episode felt so much payoff from the first season because there was just so much like calling back to it. Like we saw the scientist dude that we haven't seen in a while. Presumably he's still alive.
And he's a part of the thing I was right about for a year now.
Yes, of course. But
about the M count.
Yes, which we'll get into that stuff. I just look at him. Just look at him, guys. Look at him.
Yeah, he is an adorable little fucker.
And I do love that do those kind of just look like, what are those called? Are they called macrons? Are those what those are called? I'm trying to...
Blueberry hobnobs?
Macrons or macaroons.
Macaroon. I was going to say, I think we call them macaroons.
No, you're right. I was just... But it looks like it's just a macaroon, pretty much.
I was thinking that, because at first I was like, he's eating the kids' sweets. But then I thought, this is Star Wars. Just because it's blue, it could be healthy. It could be a healthy snack.
That's true.
And we was waiting this whole time. We knew that the kid was going to use the Force to eat something at some point. They've been setting that up. He pulling the eggs in, and just cutting to him every time. You think, when's he going to use it? When's he going to use it? All those important moments that he hasn't used it. and now he uses it to steal the macaroons.
Maybe that food's
It's a great moment. I think
milk-based.
It might be.
I think they're setting something up. I think they're going to pay it off.
Be.
I think in the last episode, something really important's about to happen, and then Baby Yoda's going to eat whatever it is that is about to happen. Like,
I saw somebody online that was like, the reason the episodes are so short is because they had to save money for the scene where Baby Yoda eats Moff Gideon.
I'm not even joking. I think not Moff Gideon actually, but they're going to pay this off. They're setting it up that he's going to eat something really important at some point.
Maybe.
You're going to think that the good guys are done for, and then all of a sudden, chomp, he's going to eat the thing that was going to kill them.
We have been waiting for him to do something. And also, I mean, it was cool to see him use the Force again. It's kind of low stakes compared to what we've seen him do at the end of season 1. I mean, he healed somebody using the Force, which, as far as we know from The Rise of Skywalker, was a thing that Rey and Ben could do because they were a dyad. And
so
Baby Yoda just did it.
Yeah. He's a big deal.
He's got some strength in the Force to him, and I'm waiting for that to pay off. I think next episode we're going to get something because, I mean, obviously I feel like next episode is going to be Ahsoka. I mean, it's Dave Filoni's episode. I'm hoping it's a longer one.
I got a question since you just brought that up. Now, when he finally meets Ahsoka and he meets a Jedi, which there are rumors, can I go ahead and spoil what a rumor is for next week's episode plot?
Yes, yeah. It was about the title.
Well, not just that. The title is the Jedi, but there's a rumor out there that she started a Gray Order of the Jedi.
Ooh, that'd be interesting.
After the events. So, my question is, I obviously, not obviously, but in my mind, obviously they aren't going to separate Baby Yoda and Boba Fett, okay? Or the Mandalorian for you guys. So they're not going to separate them. So is something going to happen? Like, do you think it'll be where Ahsoka has intentions of taking Baby Yoda and keeping him, but something happens and they're not able to make that transfer? Or do you think Ahsoka, which I think it's more likely, for whatever reason, she'll be like, no, you need to keep doing this and point him in another direction?
Well, you know what's going to happen. They've got the tracker on his ship, and he's going to lead Moff Gideon straight to this possibly convent of
versus those
renegade Jedis.
God, can you imagine if we get a lightsaber fight next episode? Yeah. If we get Ahsoka versus Gideon? But I think it can't be Ahsoka versus Gideon because she'd kick his ass, right? It has to be somebody else.
I was about to say, wouldn't it be a kick in the fucking nuts if Moff Gideon ended up killing Ahsoka in her live-action debut? I mean, we all know it would never happen.
No.
But really, what if that did happen, dude? I'd be so crazy.
They would have used Ashley Eckstein if they were going to do that. They wouldn't get Rosario Dawson and do that.
No, yeah. I still wish they would.
Sorry, Ashley.
That would have been great.
I wish it would have been Ashley as well.
Yeah, same.
Okay, I do have some more Ahsoka actually stuff, but it ties into what happens at the end of the episode. So I do want to go back to the beginning because, again, some other stuff that I just really enjoyed. Mando drinking. We just pulled the helmet up a little bit.
I've got that in my notes. Is that the first time we see that? Because the whole time everyone's been saying, well, how does he eat? How does he eat? Yeah. And he's like, I'll tell you what, this is how I fucking eat. I just lift it up and I just chop it in there like that, and that's it. Like, I was, you expected like some space pouch with a straw or something. He's like, nah, I just lift it up and I just chuck it down.
Now, was that really the Red Viper's chin, or was it the actor who usually does the under the armor work? Or was it really Pedro? That's what I want to know. I've been waiting for the people who have where you see the videos on YouTube and the thumbnail has like Pedro Pascal regular picture and then a picture of the Mandalorian with his chin showing and like the little circles to show like the comparisons of the chins and shit like that. But I mean, obviously it's probably not his real chin, but he's got a chin stand-in. A stand chin, if you will.
Maybe I think it's kind of. Well, I think it kind of also shows how comfortable he is with the child now.
Yeah, and while we're talking about who's under the helmet, I've got to assume that a lot of this episode is it John Wayne's son who does all the gunslinging stuff? Because there's a lot of that like gunplay kind of a lot. I was really impressed with a lot of that stuff. We've seen like the hand-to-hand combat stuff.
Be too old to do that. You really had me going for a second. I was like,
no, it's kid. It's his kid. I think
son is in that suit doing that. Dude, you had me going.
John Wayne's kid. I'm not even joking.
I think it's his son. It might be his grandson. It might be his grandson. John Wayne grandson.
John Wayne's aged differently, like Yoda.
That makes sense, and that's awesome.
Yeah, it's John Wayne's grandson underneath the armor a lot of the time.
That's really cool.
Yeah, you really get a sense of that in this episode.
What he looks like.
I don't know. John Wayne grandson.
Chin.
Let's see.
Look for his chin specifically.
Oh wow. Here, I'll link you guys to I think this is
Brendan.
Yeah, it looks like Brendan Wayne.
Brendan Wayne.
Yeah.
Huh. Very interesting. Wonder why we've never seen him in anything else. And I wonder if like obviously you would imagine this would not be his first gig doing something like this. So I wonder what else he's done.
I think he's a stunt guy.
Yeah.
Stunt guy. I don't know.
Yeah, I think he's probably just like some kind of Western cowboy ranch consultant. He probably teaches you to do the rope tricks and horse riding and gunslinging.
He's been in a couple episodes of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. He's been in an episode of Sons of Anarchy.
Wow.
But so he's never been like, not a whole ton, but he's done some stuff. I just really love the drinking. I thought it was hilarious.
Yeah, that was great.
Okay, so you didn't like bringing back the Mithril Dean.
I don't. Here's the thing: they keep doing this joke of, okay, I'm going to leave you here, and then the rest of you carry on. And he's like, he said something about a humidity vest, which I'm assuming is because of his species, and he's like an amphibious, which I really like that idea, because I always wondered, like, isn't it convenient how all the species can kind of just exist on any planet and they're fine? So I like how they introduced that, but then every time he says, I've got to leave now because I'm going to like dry out or whatever, they're like, no, you're coming further. No, you're coming further. No, you've got to go through this door. No, you've got to help through the reactor. And it's just like, well, don't introduce that as a plot thing and then just keep him around for convenience. It was more just the usage of him than the actual character himself. I mean, the character is the same character, obviously.
Yeah.
But doesn't the usage of him fit the story? Because he was a bounty, he was frozen, he was unfrozen in order to do what appears to be the clerical work and the secretary work.
Yeah, but he keeps saying that
he is a bitch because I mean, really, he was sentenced to carbonite, and he was let out on the agreements that he
ruined his eye.
The bitch do whatever he was told. That's how I take it.
It's just he says, "Oh, I can't stay out here for long because I'm going to dry out," and it's like every time he says that, they keep him out for longer. So it's more just like
I think it's kind of an excuse as well, though, on his part.
Probably he's a slimy piece of shit, and he's just trying to get out of it. That
the
works.
One thing that dragged on a little too long to me was because Grave Karga keeps making the same joke over and over again, where he's like, "Well, how about this? Well, how about this?" And that dragged on
years. 100 years.
It's just like, well, how about you swim in the lava? Like one too many times. It's the same structure every time is what dragged on me a little bit. It's like, well, how about, and then a different consequence. That structure, I think, went on one too many times for me. And I was like, that feels a little weird. But for the most part, I was fine. And it did lead to a gag that I really loved, which was when they made fun of the tractor beam from A New Hope. When they're like, we need you to turn off the limiters here. And he's like, you want me to get off on that thing? He's like, there's no railing, which is like a massive, like whenever I watched A New Hope as a kid, I was like, why is Obi-Wan going off on this thing? Like, what if he just leans back half an inch and falls backwards into the void?
Yeah, like you got to think of like the stormtrooper janitors who have got to like clean it and like what's the casualty rate?
And it's such an important piece of hardware. What was that, Wade?
Have you seen the Family Guy Blue Harvest? Well, they did all three. But yeah, they have an episode kind of like that on there on the Death Star and the beam, the weapon, and they're like, how can they not put railings up? Yeah, that is a very valid point. Not only were there no railings, it was like a foot wide or something. It's like,
but to have the switch around the other side,
and it's an important piece of it's like in A New Hope, it's the tractor beam tech. In this one, it's the thing that keeps the place from exploding. Like, it's really important controls that are stuck on these precarious locations where if you lean back half an inch, you fall to your death. I love
we talk about the hardware. We saw there's so much of the technology in the hardware, the doors, the controls. So much of that was from A New Hope. Even the desk in that room where with the communications thing is the same as the one that Han Solo's like, "We're fine, thank you." Yeah. And even when there's a second, I don't know if you catch it, but when they're about to come in, the stormtroopers try to shoot the door control from the inside to shut the door. Yeah. I thought that was such a great little twist, because it's like, really, you shoot the panel and it closes the door? Why don't and just to be a simple thing of, what if they did that from the inside to try and keep them out? It didn't work, but it was a nice touch.
It was a smart idea. I did think that whole sequence with with them having to turn off the thing, I thought that was going to culminate in the Mithril guy falling and Mando would have to jetpack down and grab him. That's kind of what I thought was going to happen. But
I thought they were just going to kill him. I thought, you bring this guy back, why would you do that if not to kill him for comedic value? But they didn't. That would have been low-hanging fruit.
On that note, I do have a couple more minor things to talk about, but they relate to the end. So I'm going to say, we're going to go to break. And when we come back, we're going to get into the second half of the episode, is really when a lot of the meat happened. So we'll be right back.
Hi, everyone. This is Sarah, host of Go Get That Rose podcast, a podcast that is dedicated to talking about all things Bachelor Nation. Join Jay Wade, a man in his 40s who is recently new to all things Bachelor Nation, and myself, someone who has been watching passionately for the past 3 years, as we review, share our thoughts on each episode of whatever show is currently on TV, whether that is Bachelor, Bachelorette, or Bachelor in Paradise. We might not even know everyone's name, but we have fun nonetheless. You can find us on Merc with a Movie blog feed wherever you listen to podcasts.
Hey everybody, I'm Shawn. You guys might know me on this feed from co-hosting Beyond the Screen, but now here at Merc with the Movie blog, we have started a brand new show exclusively for video games called Game Over Screen. So join me every week with my co-hosts.
Hey, how's it going? My name's Brendan.
And I'm Tyler.
As we talk about everything video game related, and when we, get to the Game Over screen. I don't know, I don't have a good pun for that, but the joke is that we're going to die a lot in the game.
Well, you might.
Hey, Jay Wade here to tell you about SEN Afterlive, our SEN Live After Show, where we talk about, whatever Christian, Brett, and the rest of the crew talk about and the insanity that ensues. So join us each week here on the Merc with the Movie blog feed on your podcasting platforms, as well as YouTube now on the SEN Afterlive channel. Talk to you then.
We are back. Listen to all of those shows. They are so fantastic. Okay, before we get into the big thing, I have one more thing that's kind of a smaller thing that I want to hit on. Or actually two more things that are kind of smaller things I want to hit on. First of all, the escape with Cara Dune, Grief Karga, and the Mithril. Mm-hmm. I just thought it was a good escape scene. I'm a sucker. This is something that's in The Last Jedi that I really love. Sorry, Wade. But I'm a sucker for scenes of ground transports flying really quickly across a massive open space while getting shot at by something in the air. like whatever medium of it's in, if it's like a Jeep getting shot at by a plane, or in this case, the prisoner transport shot at by X-Wing or TIE fighters, or in The Last Jedi, it's those skiff things on Crate getting shot at by the TIE fighters. But I am a sucker for any scene like that. So when they get out of the canyon and they're just like, we're so close, we're going to make it, we're almost there, and the TIE fighters are right behind them, I dug that so much.
That was cool, but the whole section before that in the canyon, like how long is that canyon? You've got
it's a long canyon.
You've got speeder bikes. The coolest scene, or the only scene that we've had with speeder bikes, is on the moon of Endor with all the trees. And you put the speeder bikes now in an empty canyon. They don't really, there's nothing for them to navigate around. They're kind of just flying behind in a straight line. It was pretty.
The intro though was so cool. When they go down the side, when they come down from the base down the side of the canyon wall into the canyon was so, and those two dudes like hit each other and one of them goes sideways and explodes.
It was fun watching them two like trying to communicate with each other, trying to figure out like it's like they're actually trying, you know, they're actually trying.
I also between this episode and last episode, I've really enjoyed seeing Imperial stormtroopers. I don't know, it's kind of a minor thing, but it makes me super nostalgic anytime I see I see Imperial stormtroopers around, and we've seen a lot of them over the last 2 episodes.
See, I pitched a tent when I saw the scout troopers. The scout troopers,
they're so cool with the helmets.
That's my favorite trooper look of all time.
It's got the one with the visor bit.
Yeah, they're like rectangle, square shaped helmets. Yeah,
they're
so awesome.
Because I'm with you, Wade. For me, my favorite non-lightsaber action sequence, so that's not a lightsaber fight in the original trilogy, is that speeder chase on Endor.
Oh yeah, that's dude.
I would rewind that scene over and over and over again on like the VHS that I had of Return of the Jedi. I would watch that scene so many times when I was younger. So whenever there are speeder bikes in a Star Wars movie, I'm like, yes, they're back.
You're lucky. When I was a kid, I didn't even have Return of the Jedi on VHS. The only way I could watch that scene was the Return of the Jedi trailer on the New Hope VHS.
Oh my gosh!
So I would just watch those clips from that trailer over and over again. So you know, I was probably one of the first people to ever watch a trailer that many times. Nobody started doing that until YouTube.
Probably. I also like that one speeder bike pilot gets on top. And Greef Karga's looking for him, and then he turns the thing around, and the pilot's like, "What? Oh no! Just all that's left of him is the helmet."
Yeah, that was awesome.
I thought they were going to blow themselves up. Then I was like, "That's a really bad decision." Where he just point blank fires at him. I was like, "That could have really gone badly." Last thing really about this scene before we presumably move on is like all the generic action catchphrases that Carl Weathers is delivering throughout this. Well, I've got some written down.
Wade is like, that's the best part.
What is your problem with Apollo Creed, man?
I love Apollo Creed. If he would have put on some gloves and gone hand to hand with these troopers, I would have liked it. But when it's waiting for an invitation, hang on. Whoa! Woo! Yeah!
A little bit.
There was a lot of that. There was a lot of it, and it reminded me of just like it felt like Star Wars, but it just felt too much like that chase was trying to be a Star Wars chase, you know.
I will say it totally worked for me just because it was extremely cheesy, and to me, Star Wars a lot of the time is extremely cheesy, especially in the older movies.
Yeah, I just thought it was bordering on they fly now. I was waiting for somebody to drop that line.
I made that joke in my head when the TIE fighters showed up. I was like, they fly now. I love, this is just a little thing, because to me, the TIE fighters, the noise is what I love the most about them. And it's such a distinctive noise, and I love that they didn't even see them coming. They're just driving and they hear the noise of the TIE fighters and they're like, oh fuck. And that really got me while watching. I've got a couple more, just two more small things before we get into the big thing.
May I interject here with one that concerns the TIE fighters?
Go ahead.
Okay, now these TIE fighters are there two? Okay. In the timeline of Star Wars, from the original trilogy up to like say Force Awakens and whatnot, from all of that span of time, are there two different kinds of TIE fighters? One without retractable or movable wings, and one's with, or do they start with non-movable wings, and then do they go into? Here we go.
Sorry about that. My
No
is it
problem.
gonna work?
Or do they start in the original trilogy? Do they start with the non-retractable wings, and then do they move to retractable like now, and then they deem those obsolete or something and go back to non-retractable? Because we didn't see any of those retractable or movable wing ones in Force Awakens, like the one that they stole at the beginning with Poe and Finn. That one didn't have those kind of wings.
I don't know. Maybe there was some kind of manufacturing error, and they had to recall the first wave of TIE fighters back to the company, and work out some new safety protocols, and then reissue them and update the insurance policies and all of that stuff.
Maybe.
But in all seriousness, I just assume that they've always. I assume that the idea is they've always been able to do that, and they just wanted to show that just to kind of answer anyone who's like, how do they work?
Yeah.
I don't know. All these different models. I mean, because when you get to like in the Force Awakens, and it's not the Empire anymore; it's the First Order, and they're still using like basically the same stuff. So you've got to assume that there's just updates of the same. They just like that design, and they just keep updating it and tweaking it.
I like the wings that move a lot better. It looks so cool, man.
I agree.
The way they kind of like lifted themselves up was kind of creepy.
I don't know what's wrong with my camera. I'm just gonna leave it.
That's cool.
But, I have no fucking idea. The first time I ever remember seeing the retractable wings was in season 1 of The Mandalorian. So
yeah, me too.
I don't know. So two things I have. First of all, the last scene of Cara Dune.
Yes.
Definitely felt like we were setting up a spinoff.
Yeah, it did.
Very, very backdoor pilot-y. And also, did you guys notice the Resistance theme was playing during that scene? The dun.
Oh, I hadn't noticed that.
Dun, dun. If you go back, it's like a slowed down version of it, but it's the dun 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 dun. Yeah, that one. So
I noticed the music definitely like shifted for that scene. I didn't know it was specifically from something.
It took me my second viewing to notice, but it is definitely the March of the Resistance.
Hell yeah.
Right. Is there any tie-ins to the Resistance animated show?
No. No, but
presumably
it would make sense. Because what he's talking about, he's saying like, look, the inner core doesn't believe that anything's happening, but it is, which is what the plot of the sequel trilogy is, and the reason that the Resistance and the New Republic are two separate things is the New Republic is like the First Order is not really a problem. And this is kind of the precursors to that, where the First Order hasn't popped up yet, but there are people in the galaxy that are still like, hey, it's not over. The New Republic might be moving on like it's over, but it's not, and we need to start getting ready. And so definitely felt like it was setting up a future for her in the Resistance.
Do you guys think that we'll get a Cara Dune spinoff?
Is that why?
I don't know about anymore. I don't know about anymore. Maybe.
Yeah, I didn't really want to get into any of that stuff.
No, I think we can leave it there. But I think that ship probably sailed.
Unless it's more of an ensemble show.
That I could see. If it's an ensemble show, I could see. But honestly, also Disney might not fucking care. I mean, we'll find out. We'll find out.
There's a chance that they don't.
Yeah.
I mean, on their radar, that stuff is pretty small fry as far as Disney is concerned. Not to other people that it affects, but anyway.
But without getting into all that, I do think that the actual status of that, but I will say, the fact that it's in the episode,
they could have
easily could have just cut that out.
It didn't
so easily you could have just cut that out. It has nothing to do with anything of the rest of the episode.
No.
I think the fact that it's still in there says a lot.
I love the way they talked about Alderaan though. Like it was D-Day. Like it was D-Day or something. Like, I was there.
Everybody.
We served there. I lost people there. Just really brought an extra level to that. And that was probably her best scene in the
I agree.
Episode. I wasn't a fan of her acting. I like the character. The character was badass, flipping dudes everywhere and all that stuff at the beginning. Also, quickly before we move on, when she walks into the bar at the beginning and there's all those alien dudes.
Yes,
they look like they're the same race as the band from the Cantina.
I also think one of them looked a lot like the dude in A New Hope, who's like,
got his arm cut off.
Yep.
By yeah.
I think they're different.
Like Figuring Dan. Yeah.
Because the band in the Cantina in A New Hope, is that what you're talking about? Because they look more like what we would call grays, aliens, like with the big head and the eyes. And, but it was the one dude that was with the doctor at the bar and Luke or Obi-Wan cut his arm off.
Right, yeah.
He just looked.
A couple of the dudes look similar.
Guys down in this basement were all raggedy and wore out looking, long hair and shit.
That's what I mean. I thought like, is it Figuring Dan, like down and out with long hair? The music career behind him. I love Figuring Dan and the modal nodes. I honestly, I want them to have a movie and just a serious musical biopic type movie, just happens to be set in the Star Wars universe. It chronicles the rise and fall of Figuring Dan.
They travel from planet to planet playing gigs.
Yeah, just like how they built up their name, and then like how they were a chart top sensation, and then how they fell from grace and ended up playing in Mos Eisley Cantina.
Yeah.
But anyway.
The last thing I have to ask before we get into it, and this is a big question.
Yeah.
For me, actually, why are those rebels following the Razor Crest the way they are?
Yeah.
Because at the end of the ice planet episode, they're like, all right, we're going to let you go. Like, thank you for what you've done or whatever. But they're still following him.
Do you think that goes back to your point of like how the politics is kind of like divided, and maybe some of them are kind of doing one thing and some of them are doing another? Maybe
I wonder if they want to recruit him.
Maybe.
It definitely felt strange that they showed up again, because they were like, we're done with you, and they're still following him. So I want to know why they're still following him. But
do they have in the Rise of Skywalker at the end with that big shot with all the ships coming in? Was the Razor Crest in there? I mean, I get that there's more than one Razor Crest, but I think I remember hearing somebody say that they saw the Razor Crest in that shot.
I remember hearing that as well. I'm pretty sure I also remember hearing somebody say that it just looked similar.
Yeah, but if we're kind of going into what we're about to get into, and maybe there's a lot more...
It's possible.
I mean, I still don't think there's any... like, the stuff we're about to get into seems like way too big of a tie to the sequel trilogy, but you never know.
Speaking of ships, though, real quick, do we know in canon whatever happened to Slave One?
No, and I think we're going to find out.
I hope so.
I hope so.
I think we're going to find out.
If there's a shot where Boba Fett like walks into like a dusty cave, and then like the Slave One comes out from like a cavern or something, like a canyon or whatever, I'm good. Yeah, I do like that shit.
Yeah, I want to know what happened to that ship.
Yeah, that'd be cool if it turns out he's still got the ship hidden away somewhere and he flies off in the end to set off his own spin-off. Everyone gets a spin-off.
Everyone gets a spin-off. All right, let's get into it. We are in the base. We're looking around. I didn't see this coming at all. Turns out it's not just a forward operating base, it's a laboratory.
Oh, yeah.
And let me show you what we see inside. We see that thing. We see a bunch of like containers with things
Hi, Grandma.
in them. Yeah. And I just want to bring that picture up as well.
Okay, the scar. That's in. I can see the scar now.
But it's in a different direction.
It looks just like it, but it's just in reverse order. Well, no, it's not just like it because it goes down the middle of his head into his nose.
The theory I saw is it's a surgical scar. Now,
do they? We know, but obviously about Palpatine's connection to Snoke. I mean, what's the process of him like putting his consciousness into these other?
The Snoke thing, we have no idea. Well,
so would he physically have to cut their heads open?
Snoke was not being controlled by Palpatine, as far as I'm aware. As far as I'm aware, Snoke was an independent being that they created as kind of a figurehead. But I'm pretty sure they've said that there was no, like, Snoke didn't know he was being controlled by Palpatine. Like, he was kind of pulling the
sleeper.
Yeah, kind of something like that.
Which would explain the scars in the head, and maybe there's something that they put, like with the Order 66 and the clones have got a chip in their head. Yeah. Maybe these things have got some other kind of contingency thing in their heads. I don't know.
So I want to go through what we're given in this episode because I wrote stuff down. So first of all, there's multiple aspects to what's happening here. There's a lot of words thrown around that are, I had to kind of think about them a little bit just to piece it all together a little bit. But there's the donor, who is in this case the child, it seems, who has a high M count, which obviously midi-chlorian count. And then they mention the volunteer will die if they try to do it. So the way I'm looking at it is it looks like, to me, they're trying to perfect the process of whatever they're doing on these other things before they give it to the volunteer. And I think they're trying to create a Force-sensitive person. I think they saw how Vader could do. They saw what Palpatine could do. I think Gideon is trying to create a new Force-sensitive person. The volunteer is an already established person, and they're trying to take somebody and inject them with the Force, essentially. And when they're doing it to these other people, it's going wrong. And that's why, because the volunteer seems like a specific person that they have picked is going to get this thing, but they're testing it on other people first.
Here's the thing. If you're Moff Gideon or anyone related to the Empire and you're trying to create new Force-sensitive people because you know how powerful they are you really just going to put out a random casting call to volunteers and then just like, whichever one it works on, he's the leader now?
I would assume there was a list of candidates. I would assume there was a list of candidates, of soldiers, probably. I would assume they're soldiers.
I mean, that's got RoboCop 2 vibes, you know, where they're... Yeah. Remember RoboCop 2 where they're looking for the perfect dude to put inside the robot because they're trying to replicate Murphy, and obviously it just doesn't work.
Wade disagrees with me.
The idea that you would bring somebody in to do that is weird.
Well, first and foremost, it's awful convenient how your camera goes out on the back half.
I wish I tried.
Right, and you were wrong.
I tried to fix it. It. It's not working.
But no, I just I need to change that picture sometime. But anyway, now I forgot why I was smiling, but it was something really good.
You were right. Because you were right about something.
Well, no, it wasn't that. It was just I can't remember. I don't know. I got that short-term memory loss thing going on. What were you saying, Shawn? I'm sorry. Give me a really quick summary of what you were saying. Okay.
So it seems to me that what they're trying to do is they are trying to create another Force-sensitive person. They have a volunteer.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. That just brought yes. Total shot in the dark here and probably not realistic, but the reason Ahsoka is back is because they've already, whether they found Ezra or not, they've completed that mission, and that mission's over. And Thrawn is the volunteer person that they're talking about, that they're trying to inject with the that they would like to inject with the midichlorians.
Ooh.
What if Ezra's the volunteer? What if they're trying to like?
Maybe they got him first.
Yeah,
That's an interesting idea.
He's forgive me, Ezra and Ahsoka, they mingled before did they leave off separate directions? Do we know when the last time they interacted was?
At the end of, well, you go ahead and tell, Shawn.
At the end of Rebels, Ezra does some weird Force shit where there are these space whales and he uses them to jump to hyperspace while on Thrawn's ship. So him and Thrawn just get fucking rocketed out into the middle of nowhere.
Like into the undiscovered regions.
Yeah, with no way of getting back. Like, I'm pretty sure his hyperdrive is shot, so they can't go anywhere once they're there. But they just get fucking flung into the middle of nowhere. And at the end of Rebels, Ahsoka and Sabine set off to go find him. And that is how Rebels ends.
So could we not then assume that if Ahsoka goes off to find him, and then Gideon's now got the Darksaber, which she had, so at some point all the three parties would have convened, right? So that
the Darksaber was with Bo-Katan.
Right.
Got it and then gave it to Bo-Katan.
Yeah, which we don't know what happened to her. She went off to reunite the Mandalorians, but obviously that didn't work.
Yeah.
And that was before the original trilogy.
Yes.
Because Rebels ends before A New Hope, and then there's a time jump of a while, like 7 years, and then they set off to go find Ezra after the Battle of Endor. And it's been like 5 years since that.
Yeah.
So it's possible they got him first, and they're going to use him as the candidate.
Wouldn't that be awesome, dude?
Yeah.
What a hell of a way to introduce Thrawn to live action.
It would be dope. It would be really awesome.
That would be like a next season thing, though, for sure.
Yes.
I don't know Thrawn as well, but I know that for me, somebody who's not followed all of the other canon stuff, I don't want the first time that I'm introduced to a live action Thrawn to be him like getting his mind or messed with or turned into some other kind of,
I don't know. I think he might be strong enough to do it.
He is from the unknown region, so we don't, it's,
he's a chiss.
He's not like a species that we are familiar with at all. We know nothing really about.
They are now writing.
What's going on?
Do I have that book with me?
He's got blue skin and red eyes. He's a badass looking motherfucker.
Yeah, that's all I know.
He is a chiss, and we are finally learning about his species in a new trilogy that's coming out called the Thrawn Ascendancy trilogy, which is all about the chiss ascendancy. I've got the first book behind my laptop, and the second book comes out in like June or something. But we are finally learning about his species.
See, so that could be cool. Have these books coming out, and then either next season or the final season, have that be the big reveal, is that Thrawn is the one that they're wanting to inject with the midichlorians.
I can see it.
Man, who knows?
I just think that the whole Emperor, the thing for me, I feel like they tried to explain the Emperor thing in the novelization. It's a terrible answer, but I'll buy it. I just want to be done with it.
Right.
The Snoke, I think it looks more like a Snoke.
That looks so intentional. Even if the scar happens to be flipped the other way, that could have just been an editing.
I immediately noticed the music in that scene is the music that plays when we meet Snoke for the first time in The Force Awakens.
I didn't notice that.
It is, and that music is also very reminiscent of Palpatine's music from the prequels.
The opera music, right? When
kind of like it is almost the exact same music that plays whenever Snoke or Palpatine are on screen. It's very close. I think they explained it in the novel in a shitty way, but I'll take it way. Let's move on and never talk about this again. I think if it's anybody, it's Snoke. But yeah, go ahead.
if this is tied into Snoke, do you think that was the plan all along, or do you think this is reactionary to kind of retroactively fill in the gaps of like the plot holes from Rise of Skywalker?
No, because they shot this before the movie came out.
See,
well, they finished after the movie came out.
They would have been developing it though, right?
My thought was that the reason that the Empire is looking for Baby Yoda is because in the end, now maybe all this other stuff and Thrawn even could be the chosen or this volunteer, whatever, but I still believe that the end game with Baby Yoda is that they need his metachlorians to successfully reclone Palpatine 100% back. That's what I have always thought that they wanted Baby Yoda for, was to eventually get Palpatine back. All this other stuff and experimenting on other people, that's just a part of the process before they jump into trying to fully resurrect Palpatine. And
I mean, even if that's not exactly the plan as of yet, that might be a natural progression of what they're trying to do with this volunteer, and then it just so happens to, knock-on effect and lead to that. Maybe.
It could happen. I'm personally against it. I really, as I am just not a fan. I'm just not a fan of the Palpatine stuff in The Rise of Skywalker, and I really would not like this to get tied into that. I will say
that's my thing.
It looks so much like Snoke. It looks so much like Snoke.
I thought the general consensus was the reason that people were liking the Mandalorian so much is because it is separate from all of that stuff, and it's just like they're going that hard into it. It just like I don't mind skirting it, like Baby Yoda and Ahsoka is kind of like skirting some of the familiar stuff in a way that works.
Well,
but that's like nosediving right into it.
That's the key, I think, is that it's associating itself with stuff that people unanimously enjoy. And not stuff that is, iffy with a lot of people. Now,
it would be really risky to associate that way.
One thing I saw people bring up is that if anybody can do it, is Dave Filoni. All right. Yeah. Before the Clone Wars, the prequels,
I see what you're saying.
A lot of people's love of the prequels was built off of Clone Wars. Dave Filoni could assist in taking the Mandalorian in a direction that would make maybe the sequels not a ton better, but at least make more sense, like the Clone Wars did for the prequels. I still think it would probably be better if we just left that shit alone. But hey, I have faith in Filoni. I'm not as big a fan of Filoni when it comes to directly as a screenwriter, which I've said a lot in the past, is that I think that he's written some great screenplays for the animated shows. But even then, I think his screenplays are actually really hit or miss. A lot of the episodes he wrote in Clone Wars, I was not a huge fan of.
People say about Lucas, though, right?
Exactly. He's just like Lucas, where he's the idea guy. Filoni is a genius when it comes to the big picture, which is where I like him to stay, is in the big picture. So I'm going to have faith in Filoni for now, in that, and also have faith in Favreau, because I think Favreau has proven over the last season and a half that he gets Star Wars. He gets it.
Yeah. I mean, it would be kind of crazy, right? If we kind of have like Baby Yoda and then like all this Snoke and Palpatine stuff and then all this Thrawn stuff, and then you kind of like mix it all in and then it to like a nexus point almost in the Mandalorian. It'd be pretty impressive if they pulled something like that off.
And you know what? I think there's precedent in Ahsoka that you can do it. I could definitely see Baby Yoda being an Ahsoka-esque figure, where Ahsoka did so much to help the prequels when she never appears in any of the movies. And Baby Yoda's not in any of the sequels, but I think you could use him and the Mandalorian in a way, and the other characters that are around there. Whether, because we're getting into the political stuff, which was a lot of people's big problems with the sequels. Nobody knew what the fuck the political atmosphere of the galaxy was unless you read all the books. And even then it was still questionable.
This episode and the last episode, they've done so much with just little references to the the political stuff, and they're really helping to kind of shape our
Flesh that stuff out.
understanding.
So I'd be interested to see if that's the direction they're leaning on. I'd be interested if that's why Dave Filoni has gotten so involved in the series as he has. Is if maybe at the beginning they were like, yeah, it's going to be a Mandalorian show that Jon Favreau is going to be helming up. And then as they got further into the sequels, they were like, okay, let's bring in Dave and maybe let's use this as a opportunity to clean up some of the things that people have issues with in the sequels. And I'm saying this as somebody who enjoyed most of the sequels, 2 out of the 3 of them. You could still do a lot to clean them up in this series, and I'd be interested to see if we go down that path.
Yeah. If we're bringing in Thrawn, though, on the off chance that we get Thrawn, they're going to have to address Ezra, though, right? Because they're together.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean,
they're going to, in some way, just because they're introducing Ahsoka, in some way,
they have to address it.
Have to address Ezra, whether
next week. Next week they have to address it.
No, I don't think that they don't have to. I mean,
unless
they don't have to, no.
Unless they wander upon her while she's in the middle of her search, they have to address why she's not looking for him anymore.
Well, why can't it be that for whatever reason the search is done and she's back, and it's not important to the Mandalorian?
What I mean is, I think they have to address whether she's still searching or not. They don't need to say whether she found him or not. But they need to address, does he wander upon her while she's in the middle of her search? Or has she stopped the search and has settled down? That's something that needs to be addressed in the episode.
Well, she's obviously not wandering around, I would guess.
If they know where she is.
Where to find her.
So it would assume that the search is done. Or maybe, even if it's a throwaway line of like, I spent a couple years going all around the galaxy, found these people and brought them here. Like maybe she found these people. Like if it's true that she set up a kind of academy somewhere, maybe she found people while searching for Ezra and brought them there. But that also raises the question, if it's an academy that people know about, how does Luke work into that? Because Luke also had an academy that people knew about.
Right.
You know? So we don't know how far after Return of the Jedi establishes. Do we see Sebastian Stan playing young Luke Skywalker next episode?
That was gonna be my.
I would love to see that, but I wouldn't need to see him up close or any lines. Just seeing him
from behind, like the silhouette,
background, training someone with a lightsaber would be fucking.
Which would again address a lot of people's big concern with the sequel trilogy. Luke didn't train anyone or really do the things that everyone thought he would. Just have one shot where he's off, on that place with Ahsoka doing something like that would be crazy for a lot of people.
Honestly, something I'd really like to see is if we see Ahsoka talking to somebody in the background, and she's like, "I'm sending Knight Skywalker on a mission or something." He doesn't need to be a master already.
Yeah,
dude didn't really get a lot of training in the original movies. No, I would love it if Ahsoka finished his training.
Well, you would think that
he'd be poetic, right?
Yeah, you would think that she would have had some influence on him.
Because we know that he already, at this point, has tried to train Leia, because he tries to train Leia before Ben is born, and Ben is already born at this point. So he's already attempted to train one person. Maybe after that he finds Ahsoka when she starts to make a name for herself again in a post-Empire world, and maybe she's giving him the final lessons he needs in order to take over and to lead the Jedi in this new era. I would love that. I think it'd be so poetic, like you said, Dean, to have Ahsoka be the one to finish Luke's training.
And while we're doing spin-offs, let's have a young Luke spin-off with Sebastian Stan with a young Ben Solo going on adventures.
I would love that.
Get like, some young kind of like 13, 14 teen actor and a Sebastian Stan for a limited series. Sebastian Stan's doing the Winter Soldier TV show on Disney Plus, so it's not out of the realm.
He's got a good working relationship with Disney. He's in a big contract for MCU.
Yeah, I think his one was I think
his was the largest. It was like 9.
The largest, he 9. I think him and Samuel Jackson, I think.
Yeah.
What that
have like the biggest the biggest movie contract with the MCU. So,
Yeah.
one thing that might be interesting, I don't know how much you guys know about like the expanded universe, the old Legends stuff, because at the end of the episode, we did see for the first time in live action the arc. I don't know how to say the name of these ships, but Moff Gideon's flagship is a ship that we've seen a million times in Rebels and Clone Wars, like it's a type of ship, but we've never seen it in live action. And I freaked the fuck out when I saw it. Yes.
Because you get that classic underneath the ship shot. Yeah, I wrote that down.
It's called, I've got it written down. I don't know how to pronounce it. It's called the Arquitens. Arquitens. That's the model of ship, but it's shown up a bunch of times in Clone Wars and Rebels, and to see it in live action for the first time was
Does that mean excited. You know what all those suits are at the end?
I think I do know what those suits are, and I think I know what those suits are because somebody posted that the descriptive captioning tells you what they are, and the descriptive captioning says that they are dark troopers.
Dark troopers.
And yes, dark troopers
so
are
like Death Troopers, but they look a bit Vader-y.
Yes, thank you, that one.
That is such a cool fucking shot.
It's so fucking cool, dude. Thank you, Wade, for bringing that up. Yeah. Dark troopers are I'm taking this straight from Wikipedia. Dark troopers were advanced battle droids and infantry exoskeletons that featured heavy plating that resembled the armor of a stormtrooper, powerful weapons, and jump packs for increased flexibility and tactical advantage. So they were like...
They might be droids.
Yeah, so they're like robots. Now, if I'm remembering correctly, the Dark Trooper project featured heavily in the game Star Wars Dark Forces. I'm pretty sure that's where they came from, which also introduced a fan favorite character that people are really love, named Kyle Katarn. People really love Kyle Katarn. He's an old Legends EU character. He was like the guy in the EU. He was I think he was a smuggler or rebel soldier turned Jedi that was trained by Luke Skywalker. So
okay, so just everyone's fan dream character in the 90s. Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah. So he was
with a lightsaber.
Exactly. And he was in a bunch of the books. He was a big part of the post Return of the Jedi old EU. He was a major Jedi in Luke's New Order. And we got Dark Troopers, which were introduced in the same game that he was introduced in. What if next episode we go to see Ahsoka? She's got a camp of Jedi. We see Kyle Katarn in the new canon. I think that would be also a big, incredible moment. Just because the fact that they're bringing in the Dark Troopers, because everybody thought they were bringing in the Dark Troopers for Rogue One, and those turned out to be the Death Troopers.
Yeah.
But these are Dark Troopers. And that's what the Mandalorian descriptive captioning on Disney Plus refers to them as. So another big pull from EU into the new canon by Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni in this show. And I would be really excited if we saw Kyle Katarn next episode. But I think that's a bit more of a stretch. That's a really major character to introduce.
Something else that I've just thought of while you're talking about this, still about like the expanded universe and Luke and stuff. I know that in The Force Awakens there was originally going to have a whole thing with a shot of Luke's hand or something floating in space, and then they decided to take it out. What are the chances that these guys have got that hand on that ship?
That would be cool as hell.
And that's why they, chop that stuff out of the trilogies, because they're using it here. If they're doing cloning and Force people and midi-chlorians, Luke's hand is probably something that you would probably at least try to use somehow. You've got, it's the only DNA you've got of Darth Vader, by proxy.
Yes.
And if that's something you're trying to replicate, and then maybe the hand wasn't enough, so that's why they needed the child, and now that's, that could, it's a long shot, but that could factor in, or that could at least be some internal logic going on.
Well, I mean, Luke's severed hand in the old EU was a massive plot point that was used to to create clones and shit. So, I mean, we haven't seen it yet in the new Legends. What happened to his hand?
And who could play those clones? Sebastian Stan.
Sebastian Stan.
Boom.
That would actually be fucking great. Oh, I dig the hell out of that. Can you imagine if they brought Mark Hamill in, de-aged the shit out of him, and had him fight Sebastian Stan as his clone?
I mean, that's pretty fan servicey, but man, would I see the shit out of that.
Right. It would be fan servicey as hell. I'd still watch it. You know?
I would.
Oh yeah.
Like Sebastian Stan fighting Death Troopers or Dark Troopers, whatever they are.
Yeah. I'm super excited. I can't wait to find out what's going on. This episode dropped so much more plot than I thought it was going to.
Yeah, me too.
I told you, man. The recap was long. It was gonna be plot.
I cannot wait till next episode. It's got to be Ahsoka. It's got to be Ahsoka.
Yeah, obviously. And Mando's leading Moff Gideon right to them, so we got to assume that at the end of the episode, some TIE fighters or some ships are going to start showing up, right? And then they're going to scatter them out again before we get to the big finale in the last episode. Because obviously everything's poised to kind of like culminate in the next episode, which we know is not going to happen because it's not the last episode.
You guys didn't see it, but I just had a moment where I leaned back in my chair and remembered that we've seen everything from the season now.
Yeah.
Like, we have not seen anything from the next 4 episodes, and that is so exciting. We have no idea what's going to happen. Boba Fett has to come back at some point.
Who?
Boba Fett?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
He's got to come back at some point in the end of the season, so who knows?
He's not going to come to them, right? So that means we've got to go back to Tatooine because
he might come for them. What if Slave 1 pops up, dude?
Slave 1 shows up, dude.
Oh.
That'd be fucking sweet.
What, like we're just escaping from this next planet with Ahsoka and the child, and then we get a seismic charge.
Yeah, dude. Look, the Slave 1 was out of commission for like 5 years in between when Boba Fett got eaten and when we saw him come back in this episode. Maybe it's been taking him a little bit to fix it up before he chases after Mando.
This is what I'm saying, man. There's going to be a canyon on Tatooine somewhere with a big tarpaulin over it, and there's a Slave 1 in there.
Dude.
Like, he's been pimping it out. He's got the droids. What's her name? Amy Sedaris.
The pit droids.
Let's get the pit droids on there. I mean, we could be looking at some serious like posse of people by the end of this, depending on how it all intertwines.
Because I think we're done with Grief Karga and Cara Dune for the season. That seemed like goodbye.
Yeah, I if only because it seemed natural to leave it there, and there's no way you can contrive a third visit or another visit. Yeah,
it just seemed like, all right, everybody's going their separate ways. See you guys maybe next season. Maybe we'll have an episode with you guys next season. But it's just, I feel like either this next half of the season is going to be some of the greatest Star Wars we've ever seen, or they're really going to drop the ball, because I don't think you can slow down now. I think after
you can't. It's going to be 4 episodes of.
It's got to be. It's got to be. You can't have episode 2 of this season happen again. You can't have an episode where he just goes off and does a random thing. After what you set up this episode, it's got to just
with the tracker, like you've got to like that. He's already played the long game by putting the tracker on there instead of just going straight for them. So they would have to write their way around him, not just tracking them with the tracker, obviously, and getting that kid.
Well, my thought process is almost Ahsoka. We know is definitely next episode. Like, if it's not, that would be extremely surprising.
I think we spend a whole episode on this planet with Ahsoka, and then right at the end, that ship comes over, and then we kick into the third act in the last 2 or 3 episodes.
I was gonna say the ship could show up. Ahsoka could go take Baby Yoda and leave. Safer with you. Run. And then he runs.
We don't know what happens after that to Ahsoka and Moff Gus.
Yeah, exactly.
The end of the final episode of this season, we find out who became the winner in that.
So Mando takes the Baby Yoda. Ahsoka stays behind to fight Moff Gideon. Then who shows up? because
Boba
he's looking
Fett!
for Mando, Boba Fett. Then we get
As-
Ahsoka and Boba Fett versus Moff Gideon.
Oh, I wasn't going to say that. I was going to say as the end of next episode, okay? Here's my big brain theory. Who knows if this will actually happen? Probably not, but here's my theory. Next episode's all Ahsoka. Moff Gideon shows up at the very end. She tells him, take the child, run. You'll be like, the Imperials, there's too many of them. It's me and a bunch of kids, pretty much, right? Like, just get out of here with the baby. He gets away, and the very last shot of the episode, we see Slave One follow the Mandalorian's ship away from Corvus and what's happening there. And then episode after that,
from Empire, when they go off with the trash and then Boba flies after him. Wow, that would be cool.
And then I think the next episode after that will be a Boba Fett episode. We'll finally get the resolution for that, and then we'll have a 2-part finale like we did last season, where that will have to do with Gideon and all that. I think it would make sense if we do Ahsoka, Boba Fett, 2-part finale, and we're out.
Hell yeah!
You know what we've been saying that there were those rumors that we'd go back to the forest planet. What if Mando goes there to hide after the events of next episode and Boba Fett follows him there?
Maybe. All I know is that episode is directed by Robert Rodriguez.
Yeah.
He's one of my favourite directors. I have been dying. I didn't know which episode was his. It's only now that I've kind of deduced that it must be the one after the next one. Because Filoni's one, and then Rodriguez would be the one after that, and then Rick Famuyiwa would be the one after that, presumably. It might be flipped. Either way, Rodriguez has got one of the later episodes, and Rodriguez does nothing but crazy kick-ass fucking action.
Yeah.
And
that would be the perfect
to do Star Wars.
Holy fuck!
Exactly.
Yeah, because Rick Famuyiwa wrote episode 7, so he must be directing that episode too, and it would make sense. Yeah. So, and then the last episode, I would assume they're gonna have Favreau do the last episode.
That's why I assumed that they haven't announced who. It's the only one that you can't find out who's directed. So I'm assuming it's Favreau, unless they've got some crazy like surprise guest star director like George Lucas. Which
that would be crazy.
At this point, I don't know how surprised I'd be, to be honest. After seeing that scar on that thing and being like,
I don't know, man. Guys, this was a longer one, but there was a lot to talk about. And honestly, I think the rest of the season is going to be probably longer episodes because either, like I said,
motherfuckers.
Like I said, either they're going to knock it out of the park and this is going to be some of the best Star Wars we've ever seen, or they're going to drop the ball tremendously. And I do not think there is a middle ground for these last couple episodes with everything they've set up. So before we get out of here,
too much.
Right. Before we get out of here, Dean, I want to know where you in this season would you rank this episode?
This is despite all the awesome possibilities in the conversation that it's opened up, which most of that is because of stuff that we know or that Shawn knows specifically. This is still from a filmmaking and script. Right, this is still the weakest episode from both seasons. Sorry, even the Sanctuary episode is better than this one.
Oh, what the fuck?
Oh, Wade!
No!
Only because Sanctuary did the whole like Seven Samurai thing really well, and it kind of just homaged.
Oh, dude, no.
This episode felt like it was trying to be Star Wars, whereas the other ones have been like homaging the stuff that Star Wars was homaging.
Oh, I remembered one thing I forgot to talk about. Just really quickly, the music. There's like an electric guitar theme version of the Mandalorian's theme when he arrives for the first time. Oh, amazing. I don't know if anybody's played Final Fantasy 15, but it kind of reminded me of some music from Final Fantasy 15.
Oh, man.
Anyways, sorry. I got it. I'm so sorry. I don't know why that popped. You were like, it feels like Star Wars. And I was like, the music. And I was like, the guitar. Wade, where do you put this episode?
Number 2. Bo-Katan episode is still number 1 in my mind. This is number 2.
Wow.
Okay. I would, I'm gonna put it after what you said, Dean. You talked me down a little bit. I saw your points. I agreed with some of your points. I still
was it just
enjoyed it.
mindless negativity? Was it? See?
Yeah.
Star
Yeah,
Wars. I done.
I still enjoyed this better than the episode where they crash landed in the ice. I still enjoyed this episode more than that one, but I enjoyed episode 1 more. I thought the action and everything in episode 1 felt more inspired, like you were saying, Dean. I'm gonna put this below episode 1. So it's my number 3 of the season so far, but still, we're 4 episodes in this episode. The season the show hasn't had a miss for me yet. I've enjoyed all of
When
them.
I say this is the weakest episode of all of them, I still enjoyed this episode.
Yeah.
Didn't not enjoy this episode. It just, if I had to rank them, this to me was the weakest one. But I've liked all of them to varying degrees. Obviously, I wouldn't be doing this show otherwise, motherfucker.
Poor Wade. All right, Wade, where can the people find you online?
Y'all can find me on the Twitter at jwade1134. That's the letter J, WADE1134. And I also host a show called SEN Afterlife on Wednesdays and Fridays.
Heard of it?
With Dean. And I'm also on another show called Go Get That Rose, a Bachelor show, which is on live on Wednesday nights.
Go Get That Rose.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Dean, where can people find you?
Find me on SEN Afterlife Wednesdays and Fridays, and on this show on Fridays you can find me at Dean Lewis 2099 on Twitter, and I'm getting slightly better at doing this at the end of each episode. So,
amazing. You guys can follow me on Twitter at Shawn_AFK. All of the podcasts that I do are in my bio. And you guys can find this show and others on the Merc with Movie Blog podcast feed, which can be located on Anchor, Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, Radio Public, Breaker, Overcast, and some of the shows get uploaded to YouTube. And obviously these are streamed on YouTube. We stream every Friday, 6:30 p.m. Eastern, talking about the latest episode of The Mandalorian. Very exciting. We're going to have an exciting last 4 weeks. We have a month of this show left, guys. Can you imagine? We're only halfway through.
Yeah.
We're only halfway through and things have already popped off. We've seen everything from the trailer. It's crazy. You guys can also follow Merc with Movie Blog on Twitter at MovieBlogMerc. But thank you guys so much for joining us, and we will catch you guys next time on the next episode of Hey Mando.